See Gordon Brown, Berlusconi, Sarkozy, and Germany, all of them, they sit with him in his stupid tent and making deals on the blood of the Libyan people. They say Libya is safe, and it is not safe at all. We want to raise awareness here about the situation of Libya and the relationship between Britain and Gaddafi. Gaddafi and his family, they are corrupt, and they're using the Libyan wealth. They're using the Libyan wealth to persuade and put pressure on European governments to shut up on their human rights abuse. The Libyan regime is the most brutal regime in Africa. Even though we see the governments, those who call for freedom and human rights and democracy, and they want to spread democracy in the Middle East, and they brought the example to those dictators that they demolished the whole Iraq. So Saddam Hussein is the best example for the West to provide to the dictators of Africa. If they don't obey to America and Britain, they will be bombed and they will destroy their country. And when Saddam Hussein is being dragged from that hole like a rat, Gaddafi was scared and he changed line of his mass destruction bombs, and he surrendered to the West. So he gave up his mass destruction bombs and he gave it to America, not to the United Nations. And what we see, that Gaddafi is being rewarded from the West, that they will not talk about his regime, they will not talk about his torture, they will not talk about his oppression in Libya. And they say that Gaddafi is the peace, he is the peace worker, he is the peace ally for the Americans and the Europeans in Africa. Go back to the history and see where Gaddafi was. He was the madman of the Middle East. Gaddafi was responsible of many crimes around the world. Gaddafi didn't torture his people only, but he killed innocent people around the world. And the problem that we see now, that the European governments, they've forgotten about Geneva Conventions, they've forgotten about human rights, they've forgotten about democracy, and they make deals with Gaddafi, and they say that Gaddafi is their best friend. Unfortunately, Gaddafi is not stable, and what they do with them, that they made deals, they made arms deals, and they made investment deals like Switzerland. Gaddafi called for terrorist attacks on the Swiss people, and he stopped supplying Switzerland with the oil and the gas, and he kicked out of Libya all the Swiss companies, and he punished Swiss citizens for fake accusation, and he put them in jail now. The European Union just let the Swiss down, and they said, we cannot, come into this conflict, they said that they have nothing to do. Sarkozy said Gaddafi is his best friend and he can't say anything against his stupid call. And Sarkozy, and the other one is Berlusconi. Berlusconi is the mafia man. He doesn't care about human rights, doesn't care about freedom, but he cares about oil and gas and money investment in Italy. And we see Gordon Brown, he is very busy with the recession and he wants to get Britain out of the government poverty. So what they did, they made deals with Gaddafi. They don't care. Gordon Brown didn't care about Lockerbie bombing, Yvonne Fletcher, Libyan people, all of them, they go to hell. He just wants to get some money for Britain. Libya is the first or the most the reserves. Libya is the most or the first reservation, has got the first reservation of oil and gas, and that's why Gaddafi has been accepted. Gaddafi has been accepted over his oppression, over his human rights abuse, and he's been welcomed by the British government, and they love him now. Not just this, the guy who's been accused for the Lockerbie bombing, he's been released. They say they released him on compassionate, but the reality is they released him for the oil and the gas. They released him for the oil and the gas, and the guy, he is still alive and he is very well. So what about Lockerbie bombing? What about the victims of Lockerbie bombing? Nobody will talk about them. Yvonne Fletcher, she participated in a demonstration. Libyan protesters stood in the front of the Libyan embassy in 1984. In 1984, Libyan protesters in front of the Libyan embassy in London protested peacefully. And imagine the staff of the embassy, they came out with machine guns and opened the fires. They opened the fire on the protesters. They opened the fire on the protesters, and they killed Yvonne Fletcher, the policewoman. So what we see a peaceful protest guarded by a British police in the front of the Libyan embassy, and the staff from a diplomatic place, they opened the fire and they killed and they injured 21 Libyans, and they killed Yvonne Fletcher. What's happened since then? The British government still negotiate with Gaddafi, and they couldn't get to the man who opened, or to the men who opened the fire. In 1984, Gaddafi celebrated the coming back safely to his group who were in the Libyan embassy. Still till now, the British government is negotiating with Gaddafi to get the compensation. They want the compensation for Yvonne Fletcher. They've forgotten about the criminals who killed her. They've forgotten about Yvonne Fletcher, who lost her life serving the country. That's the hypocrisy of the British government. Not just this, but Gaddafi, the madman, the enemy of the West, he is now the friend of the West. He is the beloved poodle for the West. Even Gaddafi, when he called for jihad against Switzerland, about it. Nothing said. One guy from America, he contributed and he commented on Gaddafi and his stupidity. The Libyan government or Gaddafi's regime, they threatened America to apologize for this guy's comments or they will kick out all the American companies. In 24 hours, that guy came out and apologized for his comments, and he said, oh, I didn't think that my comments will bring conflict between my country and Libya. So that's what we see. We see the hypocrisy of this world. It is just money, and it is just the rich corporation companies, and it is just for the corrupt governments. People, they don't count. Lives doesn't count, because what we see, what we see, the Americans and the British governments, they provided a nice example for freedom and democracy, like what we see in Iraq, and also in Afghanistan. Democracy under occupation and also corrupt government. Iraq has got a corrupt government and it's being supported by the West now. And we see the same in Afghanistan. Corrupt government, and it's being kept for now more than 10 years. It's supported by the West governments. That is the example that they want to provide the Middle East and the what's so-called third world. That means if you become a poodle for our, for us, then we are going to support you and let you stay in power as long as you serving us. That is the message that the West governments, they are sending to these people. So there is no real democracy. There is no real freedom. What we want for our people, what we call for our people, we want our people to choose what kind of democracy they want. But firstly, we want the British government to recognize that the Libyan people has got the right to oppose Gaddafi, has got the right to have activities against the Libyan regime. Not just here, but we want to go back. We want to go back and oppose the brutal, the vicious, the killer, the most corrupt regime in the world. We want to oppose Gaddafi in Libya. That's what we want. We want the British people, because we don't believe in government, but we do believe in people. We want the British people to recognize our right to go home and to oppose the regime in our country, inside Libya. Not to be tortured, not to be killed, not to be imprisoned. That's what we want. If we receive the British people's support and they can put pressure on their government, they can put pressure on the British government to recognize the Libyan opposition, like what they did with Zimbabwe. The British government, the European governments supported the Zimbabwean opposition until they got Mugabe to recognize them, and they went and they opposed the regime inside their country. That's what we want. But unfortunately, that Mugabe has got no oil, but Gaddafi has got the oil. So what we want to do, we want the British people to say freedom, human rights, and also stop the oppression before any deal, before selling Gaddafi arms, before making investment with Gaddafi, before welcoming Gaddafi's regime and his family in Britain. That's what we want. The Libyan people suffer for more than 40 years, and when the United Nations put sanctions on Libya, it was on Libyan people only. But Gaddafi's family, they were studying here and around the world. Gaddafi's family, Gaddafi's daughter, she was studying here in Britain, while the Libyan people suffering under the sanctions. That's the British people, what they didn't know. But I want to tell you that the Libyan youth, they flee the country now. Libyan youth, they flee the country. They escape the regime. And I've just heard that about 4,000 Libyan, they are coming here to study. And I promise you, the most of them will stay here. They are not going to go back, because the regime is brutal. The life there is destroyed. The infrastructure is being destroyed. The punishment in Libya is a holy punishment. Gaddafi punished cities, towns in Libya. Gaddafi stopped supplying towns and cities with electricity, with gas, because they tried to get rid of him, because they voiced out their opinions against the regime. And I want to tell you that this world it doesn't worth to live in if there is no justice for all. The British people, they struggle, and they campaign for more civil liberties. They campaign for more freedom and democracy. But I tell you, in Libya, we haven't got the smell of it. We haven't got the smell of it. It is just one man thought, just one man party. It is a leadership of dictator, brutal man who killed thousands and thousands of his people and involved in all the crimes and all conflicts around the world. Gaddafi is responsible about war crimes in Africa. Gaddafi is responsible about Chad war. Gaddafi is responsible about the conflict in South Sudan. Gaddafi is responsible about the conflict in Darfur. Gaddafi supported David Schuyler in Sierra Leone. Gaddafi supported the Sahara in the west of Africa. That is Gaddafi. And now the Americans, they say, oh, Gaddafi is our friend and he is our lion terrorist, and not just this, but they call him the peacemaker in Africa. That they say that Gaddafi is helping stabilize the area. But believe me, it is just a lie. It is just a lie. It is a madman, a crazy, stupid person sitting on a huge treasure, the treasure of Libya. And that is what needed from the West governments. Please think of the Libyan people. Think of the prisoners of the political opinions in Libya. Think and remember the nurses, the Bulgarian nurses and the Palestinian doctor who's been accused for fake story, and they've been taken as scapegoats for Gaddafi's crime in Benghazi when more than 400 children being injected by the HIV virus. Don't forget about Yvonne Fletcher. Don't forget about Lockerbie bombing. Don't forget about the club in Greece bombed by Gaddafi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
خذيتك الخمس دقايق والله راحت منك. لا يا راجل ما قلت لك انا الله يهديك يا راجل.
سكرت
شنو؟ انت غير تطفي من هنا وتولع تصدر هيك فاهم انت؟